Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, February 28th, 2014. All eyes are on Ukraine and its political upheaval. And I'm just going to give you a little map here to start off with. There's a map of, the Europe. This is Europe over on this side, and there's Italy down there, and there's, France and Spain, and they're right in the middle of that blue thing. This is Ukraine. And it's really kind of between east and west. And then on this side, this is all Russia over here. Now, it looks like a small country, but it's not. It's nearly the size. It's close to the size of Texas. And here's another map. We're just going to blow it up here a little bit. I know this is low tech, folks, but here is Ukraine, and this is of major strategic importance to Russia. Down here in the Black Sea is a Russian naval base. It's very important to Russia. It also is a big border, over here on this side with Russia. And there is no way on God's green earth the Russians are going to allow Ukraine to fall into Western hands. And isn't the timing funny on Ukraine and all these protests? I mean, during the Sochi Winter Games in Russia, where Russia had, thousands of troops ringing Sochi to protect against any kind of terrorism, game on in Ukraine, and just when the games are wrapping up, the protests wrap up, and lo and behold, the government is ejected, and and now Russia is sitting here scratching its head, saying, "Oh my gosh, our troops were tied up in Sochi while they had all these protests going on." Now, Ukraine is once independent, has independence and wants freedom, but this is a terrible thing going on. I think it's going to get bloodier. It's east and west. I mean, half the country is pro-Russian, speak Russian. They are decidedly pro-Russian. The other half is pro-West, pro-EU. And this is something that is, if you thought Syria could start World War III, and I did think it could start World War III, then this is Syria on steroids. The West is playing with fire, nuclear fire. And then there are all these reports about how Ukraine is just about ready to have a financial collapse. And then there are these loans that the West wants to give to Ukraine. Meanwhile, there are 150,000 Russian troops massing on the border. And my prediction is overtly or covertly, and I think covertly it's already begun with these Russian mass gunmen that are partial to Russia, that are in the Russian camp, that take over, government buildings. But I think the overt part of it is I think Russia will invade. They will invade if they have to, and that's the reason why there's 150,000 troops in the border, Russian troops. There's Russian aircraft flying up and down the border, and here we have the U.S. saying, U.S. to Russia, don't muscle in on Ukraine. I think Putin back to the U.S. is hey, go F yourself. They're going to go to the mat on this. If it takes World War III, Russia is not going to allow a major seaport fall, a major blocking of one of their borders, a major border country, the Ukraine, fall to Western hands. I mean, right across the Black Sea is, of course, a NATO country, Turkey. And Russia feels like the West is closing in on it. And you know what happens when people feel cornered? They fight. In Syria, it's not going well. Not going well at all for the U.S. Let me get this headline here. This just happened this past week. Syrian army kills at least 152 rebels. Now, this is Hezbollah, Iran, Russia, Syria on one side, and then you have the rebels in the West and Al-Qaeda, a couple of terrorist groups basically taking point on this, battling it out. And I wonder if this Ukraine thing is punishment to Putin for blocking the U.S. Putin came in with his Navy, and he backed Obama down in Syria. We were close to going at it in war. We were close. And then, Putin came up with this, we'll give up Syria will give up its chemical weapons. I don't think that's what Obama wanted, but that was a major coup for Vladimir Putin, and a major coup to get the United States to back off. And now here we have the situation in Ukraine. Is this to keep Russia busy so they can go after Syria? Is this punishment to Russia? Russia has this naval port in the Black Sea. As I've told you a couple of years ago, they have this naval port in Tartus, Syria. I said, there's no way they're going to give that up. Never. What happened? Not giving it up. I mean, the only reason why Syria is still standing and the Assad government is still there is because Russia told the West, no, you're not good. No, you're not flying sorties over here. If you do, you're going to be dogfighting Russian jets, and you're going to be dodging Russian anti-aircraft missiles. And that's why Syria is still there. Is the West mad about that? Are they punishing Putin? Are they going to try to get Putin involved in a bloody civil war on his border? Remember, Ukraine is half partial to Russia and half partial to the West, and you saw that things got ugly and bloody. More than 100 people, killed there. But of course, that's nothing compared to Syria. 140,000 people are dead, and now on the borders of Syria, you have Israeli airstrikes hitting Hezbollah, and Hezbollah vowing to hit back. Have you ever seen this kind of one explosive situation in the world after another? You have Iran, you have Israel, you have Saudi Arabia wanting nuclear weapons. You have Saudi Arabia saying that the United States stabbed him in the back. You have Ukraine, you have Russia, basically putting tens of thousands of troops on the border. You have Syria, which is still a dicey situation. No progress is being made in the peace talks there. I've never seen this many possible black swans that could blow up, and then against the backdrop of a very weak global economy. And speaking of that, China. James Rickards, who is the best-selling author of Currency Wars, is also a financial expert, money manager. James Rickards, wrote a piece this week, and he says that this is about China. Investors are in for a rude awakening when they realize how much of the China story is false and how quickly it can unravel. Rickards goes on to say, China's on the verge of financial collapse of unprecedented magnitude. This is not a dumb guy. This is the guy that the Pentagon brings in to oversee financial war games, James Rickards. He's been on, I'm happy to say, USA Watchdog, and will be on again, I think, near the end of March to talk about his new book called The Death of Money. China, can you imagine what kind of catastrophe, what kind of daisy chain China could set off if it financially implodes? You think they might want to sell a few treasury bonds to, kind of get liquid? He says it could all happen, between now and 2015, or happen sometime in 2015. Listen, it's so dicey. If there's war, it could accelerate things in a hurry, couldn't it? Well, Bitcoin got another big old black eye. The paper put it nicely here. It just says Bitcoin suffers a setback. This is because of the, $400 million in Bitcoins lost, vaporized, gone, poof, in this, Tokyo, Japan Bitcoin exchange called Mt. Gox. It imploded, and it took all those Bitcoins with it. Now there's talk about another exchange, but they want to have rules and regulation and transparency. Really? The first little piece of transparency about Bitcoin I'd like to see is that the programmers that invented this remain anonymous. Why? This is supposed to be cutting-edge stuff. This is like Edison inventing the light bulb and saying, "Yeah, don't put my name out there. I don't want anybody to know I did that." I mean, the programmers who invented Bitcoin want to remain anonymous. Is this an NSA operation, a CIA operation, a government operation? On one hand, you have the government that says, "Oh, they're pretty good." On the other hand, you have the government saying, "Whoa, they're going after people for money laundering." Which, incidentally, if you hit it big with Bitcoin, I suggest you put that down on a tax form and claim it as a capital gain. But a lot of people have been hammered with Bitcoin. I mean, I've told people that if you're a trader and you know what you're doing, yeah, fine. A store of value? No. I mean, are we going to have a cryptocurrency? Sure. Probably. Is Bitcoin it? Not sure. A store of value? No way. And it's been all over the map in the last year. It's been a few $100. It's been $1,200-1,300. It's up 30%, down 30%, up 40%, down 50%, down 20%. It's all over the map. All over the map. And this new exchange that we're talking about, that it wants to be, that's going to have government oversight. I mean, what, FINRA or the SEC or somebody's going to have to come in and say, hey, rules, regulations, people have to get paid. No more vaporizing $400 million in Bitcoins. I don't trust Bitcoin. I don't want to be a Luddite and say, whoa, they're never going to have a digital currency. We basically have digital dollars now, and people wire transferring money, and people, paying for stuff with, their smartphone, or people, using digital money and credit cards. So, are we going to have a digital currency? Yes. Is Bitcoin it? Not so sure. Risky. Very risky. The first good financial news we've had in, weeks was, housing sales at 9.6%. Housing sales up 9.6%. Woo-hoo! This is against a backdrop of a string of negative stories about the economy. Negative stories. Here's a story about housing that the mainstream media didn't really pump up very much. And according to the Mortgage Bankers Association, last week mortgage applications were down 4%. Year over year, mortgage applications, according to the mortgage bankers, down 15%. Maybe that's why J.P. Morgan Chase is laying off thousands more mortgage bankers. Remember last year they laid off 15,000, and now several thousand more mortgage bankers are being laid off. Other big companies, other big banks have laid off mortgage bankers. Maybe it's because, interest rates are rising, cash buyers are dwindling. People can't qualify for the no money down, low interest loans because they can't even make the payment stream. I mean, the housing market should be taking off with no money down. I saw it at my bank, USD loan for, rural loans. No money down. We don't need to take a look at your, foreclosure history. You just have to make the payments. I mean, the real estate market ought to be taking off like a rocket. 9.6%. But that against a backdrop of falling mortgage applications. How can any real estate market be taking off with high unemployment, declining mortgage applications, declining buying power of the dollar, declining take-home pay, Obamacare cutting hours, in effect giving a cut? Speaking of cutting, I can't believe he's going to be cutting the military against this big backdrop of all these things happening, overseas with Russia and China and, possible upheaval in the Middle East. It's unbelievable that he's even thinking about cutting the military, but I guess he wants to continue the social spending, and he's got to get the money somewhere. But cutting the benefits of veterans? Come on. Finally, former Fed head Ben Bernanke, I'll just give you a little picture of him. I love him. I'm sorry he's going to be gone. Come on, focus up here. Oh, well, you got it. There you go. Oh, there we go. He's going to be getting paid $8 million reportedly for writing a book. It's his memoirs. And, hey, I want to close with a couple of titles I thought of. Title number 1 for the Ben Bernanke memoir is Wrong on Everything. Title number 2, Honey, I Shrunk the Global Economy Through Money Printing. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for your comments on the site. Thank you for using the donations button. It helps us out. You have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.